it didn't say recording in progress, but it says recording there. So, hey guys.
Oh, it says now.
There we go. It delayed it. So recording is in progress. Hey guys, this is Holistic Health Harry. Today I'm joined by a brother who I think's in Brazil. Correct me if I'm wrong. His name's Luccas Laquintinie. Correct me if I'm wrong on your surname,
Yes.
brother. And you are in Brazil. Lovely. And I've known you
Yes.
quite
The
a
name is all right, and I am in Brazil.
yes, I've known you quite a while on Facebook, and we've been friends, and I've always loved your posts. But now we're going to explore more each other and what we know more intimately. And also, I want to talk to you about some big things that you've done regarding things that me and you have in common. So welcome, Luccas. And yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Now it seems official. We were talking for a few minutes, but now it's recording.
Yeah.
um, okay. Am I supposed to introduce myself? Do you want to start asking
Yeah, go
questions
for it.
or?
So maybe I could ask you a question because I do like to ask people this question to start off. Like, I guess what has there been an event in your life that has occurred that has led you down the path that you're currently at, or was it a gradual awakening? How do you find yourself here in this moment in time?
Well, I think it was more gradual. Um, if I have to be honest, I can trace a few seeds being planted back when I was a teenager, maybe. But should I go from there, or do I just skip
Yeah,
it?
of
To
course, the big events of your life. Yeah.
okay, I'll see if I can summarize, not to spend half the interview talking about my past. But when I was 15, I suppose I can say that my aunt gave me the book Sophie's World by Justin Gardner, maybe. He's
Right.
a Norwegian
Right.
author,
Yeah.
and it really sparked my interest in philosophy and started opening my mind. And I also dated a vegan girl for a few weeks. I had a vegetarian teacher, so there were a few seeds being planted. I was starting to think a little more openly. But it was only when I was 20 that I had this friend, and she saw that I was so open-minded. And one day she just, she was a vegetarian, and she just approached me and had me start thinking that, hey, maybe some of your problems could be related to what you eat. And then a light bulb kind of went off, and oh, what we eat actually
Mm.
impacts our health. So I started researching, and then one thing just started leading to another, and which led me to, at the end of 2015, after a lot of experimenting, I stopped eating meat altogether. I stopped eating dairy, and it took me another year maybe to find out about raw foods. But then from there on, it just,
Mm.
a lot of rabbit holes, and one thing led to another, and the snowball just kind of, and here we are, essentially. I guess that.
Yeah. Did you feel compelled to share when you started on Facebook? You felt compelled to share it with either in the real life or in the Facebook social media world when you learn these things with diet as it was changing you?
Well, not so much at first, because first I saw that there was a lot of resistance, right? One thing that I learned very early was that if I attempted to push my new views on people, many were very resisting towards it. At least here in Brazil, I didn't see many like-minded beings to begin with, which is also what led me to be on the internet, connecting abroad with people from other countries. I learned that if I just did my thing and respected my family's views, they also respected mine. So for a long time, I just kept quiet. It seemed more comfortable as I was starting to explore these new ways. But I think it was in 2019 that I created a Facebook again, just to follow a few people. But then I started participating in a few groups. I was already following a few YouTube channels, leaving a comment here and there, and then gradually just started becoming a little more natural to just express and share my experiences. And then I saw that some people were resonating with it, I started connecting with more like-minded beings. So I was like, oh, okay, so there are people to talk about that are receptive to this information, right? And then I just started sharing more and more, and then next thing you know, you're eventually writing a book.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Before we get to the books, and that is going to be huge for what we're going to talk about in a bit. But yeah, just to say as well, I know what you mean
And
with Facebook and social media, because as me and you walk out into the wider world and the streets and the towns and cities around us, even in a country as amazing as Brazil, I'm sure you'd find, just as I did, that a lot of people aren't open to these ideas that we present on things that we're learning in diet and health and against pharma drugs and fasting and sun and urine and just a million things. So it's amazing that you did a similar thing to me almost. I too was got excited from urine therapy, went on the Facebook groups, no intention to share, started experimenting, watching other people talk about it and felt, you know what, it took a long time for me to start sharing too and to find my tribe. But I noticed straight away on Facebook was my people that understood and weren't judging me for the things I know if I talked about on the outer world, they'd think I'm crazy. So it begun for us very similar like this.
yes, yeah, very similar actually. I think for many people actually, right? We often hear these comments like, "No one in my town gets me, but I finally found this community where I can express myself." So it's kind of interesting that we're now making this connection, right? The internet, some of these tools, many people say that are bad, that are good, but it depends on how we use it now. And we're
Yes.
actually connecting with one another. And a few decades ago, that would not be possible, right? Many of us would not even be able to access all of the information that we have now. So it's
No,
very interesting to see how we're getting together and exchanging nowadays.
absolutely. And if you're just thinking out loud, if you're a very shy person and don't like going and meeting people, it's a great way to start being shy. And funny enough, me too, although most people don't think it. But yeah, I can see it in you. People hopefully can still see it in me. I am shy. But we start out with a shyness. And I don't think the shyness ever goes away because that's the core of who you are. But I just noticed people like me and you, we come out of our shell, whether that's writing books, talking about it, interviewing people, doing big posts. That is more than shyness. That's it starts with social media and then you just get more confident to speak your truth all over the place.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that a lot. That theme in my life, I would say. I remember the first time I was in school and I had to go to the front of the class to present a paper. I was like literally sweating. I was so nervous back then, and it's been a process. 1 or 2 years ago, I would not be entirely comfortable doing this interview.
Mm,
Now I feel I'm ready, and it's very interesting to see that I am to some degree a shy or introverted person, but I also see how this is also a pathway for me to grow and learn more about myself as instead of letting it define who I am, I see, well, exactly as a pathway to, oh, so here I can grow, right? Here I can step out of my comfort zone and
exactly. Yeah,
see where it goes.
and I must congratulate you for that because I mean, I'm not one to judge, only so I can learn lessons for me. And what I've noticed is a lot of people will tell me things like, one day in the future, I'll do this, I'll write the book, I'll do the interview with you, Harry. And I've been around long enough to see that 5 years has passed, say, and that's still not happened with certain people. So when it does happen, there's a difference between someone that do you know what I mean? People, it's easy to talk and say, one day I'm going to
Yeah.
be ready, one day I'm going to be ready, and you
Hmm.
can mean it like someone like you,
Hmm.
but someone else that's not like you that does want to but never does it can say the same thing. One day I'm ready, and a time will fly, and it never comes around. If you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, no, I think it ties perfectly with this idea of the comfort zone, right? Because every now and then we have these glimpses like, hey, I could change one day. I think it's not today, but at one point we'll have to realize that we cannot say tomorrow again, right? We have to say today and start now.
Yeah,
And at one point we have to do that little leap of faith, right? It could
yeah,
take a while for some people, but there are some that just never make that decision. I think it's
exactly.
always tomorrow,
It's always
and
tomorrow.
it's always going to be tomorrow, but tomorrow never comes. So
Right. And then tomorrow becomes a massive groove in your head, and then it becomes a habit. And once tomorrow's a habit without the action today, you're in trouble. Then it'd be really hard to like, yeah.
yeah, no, and we can see this in different aspects of our lives, right? Too, because from the time I found John Rose on YouTube, I'm sure you've heard of him. I think it was very at the end of 2016 or early 2017.
Mhm.
And well, you find something new, exciting. You, man, I'm gonna go the distance. I'm gonna just fast for 3 months and whatnot. And like it took me 3 years until I finally made the commitment, right? Because it was always, this time it's a
Yeah.
little hot. Maybe next month I'll start.
Yeah.
Next year, and we see this all the time in ourselves, right? So it's pretty cool when we see some change, when we see that we decided to move forward with something, but every now and then we still have to keep ourselves in check and see where am I still making excuses, where can I grow, where am I actually behaving just like these people we were describing, but on a minor scale or on a different subject, right? Every
Yeah.
now and then I still catch myself doing these things,
Yeah.
just
Me too.
just
Yeah.
like with this interview. Uh, I finally decided to go the second time you asked me, but it's the
Yeah.
second time you asked me.
Right. And to clarify to people, you've actually written not one, but two books. So let's talk. This is one of the huge reasons I want to share the audience with you, the book itself. So your first book, I believe, is called Little Book About Fasting. And I bought that in paperback. I'm sure I bought it in paperback because I've got it at my UK address in paperback. And that was a great book.
Yeah,
I loved it.
I should. Thank you. I should be releasing the paperback of the new one too. If
Cool.
not by the end of this month, by the next. I
Right.
was finishing editing a few things. You know how it is, right?
Yeah.
Writing the text is one thing, but actually editing, seeing if there are any mistakes, doing the book cover, it takes a different type of work.
Yeah. And that, yes, you've written two books. But can you talk a little bit about the first book? Obviously fasting is a huge deal for everyone that understands real true health, in my opinion, and holistic health. So in this book, which I think is brilliant, by the way, I like both of them. I read both of them. But what do you talk about generally in fasting? And can you answer the audience, why is it so important? What is fasting and why is it so important? Um,
Well, I think one of the first things that well, not one of the first things, but now as I see, one of the most important things about fasting is that realizing that it's not a weird thing that we actually do. I think it's very interesting when we make a distinction that we don't do a fast, we just observe a fast, because like right now we're both fasting, right? Unless you have food on your mouth, food on your stomach, you're fasting. So even
uh,
if you're eating 3, 6 times a day,
mhm.
you're still intermittent fasting for like 3 hours here, 3 hours there. We all dry fast essentially for, I don't know, around 8 hours when we go to sleep. So
Mm,
it's not something that's out of our lives, right? We're just talking about extending that period in
mm.
a deliberate yet intuitive way. And because we see benefits from it. And I kind of forgot what you asked.
No,
Where I was going with this.
you're right, and I'd like to add there as well that it's just a question of like everyone's fasting, as you said, everyone's doing 8 hours when they sleep,
Mhm.
and if we're being honest, average people do about 3 to 4 to 5 meals and snacks a day. So it's a question of like if they're doing this amount of fasting, which they are, but
Mhm.
it's less than what we do, and the problem is they're doing that amount of fasting, which is less than us, and the results are often decay, disease, ill health, and lack of energy and issues currently and down the line. So they've got to, like you
Exactly.
suggested, extend what they're already doing to levels that we work at so that because we have the energy, the elimination, and not worries about cancer tomorrow and Alzheimer's and all this. So you're right, it's an extension of what already everyone does.
Exactly. And when we start looking at it from that perspective, then it's sort of dismystified, right? It's not something these weird people go without eating. Like, no, you also go without eating. They're just showing you that if you do it a bit longer, every now and then, in a sustainable way to where you currently are, you will experience all of these health benefits and you can experiment for yourself, right? And I think that's one of the reasons that intermittent fasting has become so popular, right?
Yes. Yeah, it really has actually. It's well
Mhm.
known in the biohacking community. Outside of health, I
Yeah,
guess everyone seems to know about it.
yeah. Now it's. I think it's mostly directed to that weight loss mentality,
Hmm.
and I think some bodybuilders and athletes, these type of people that already have some sort of health awareness
Hmm.
or body awareness, at least not necessarily health, but body awareness. I think they started catching up. What's interesting is that not so many people talk about fasting for more than a day, right?
Yeah. Right.
In this community, at least, and that's where we actually start seeing. I know you're familiar with Chris Manley on Facebook.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
pretty sure he's the one that said intermittent fasting and you get intermittent results. So that
Ah.
really stayed with me. And
Yeah.
because it's true, you get a lot of benefits from intermittent fasting, but you really get the most benefits when you actually start delving into days long, maybe weeks long fasting, right? And
Yeah.
it's sort of a exponential curve almost, I would say, because the longer you go, it's just like it opens a whole new world of,
Yeah.
of benefits and a different awareness, right? I think one of my favorite things, it's like you're detoxing, you experience fatigue every now and then, but the mental clarity that you get is like out of this world, right? You're more in tune with your intuition.
Hmm.
It's you cannot put into words accurately, right? It's something you really have to experience yourself. I know you know what I'm talking about, and everyone else too. So I think it's very interesting when you decide to experiment with these things and actually see the benefits yourself, because then you actually it's like the Chinese saying, right? You hear and you forget, you see and you remember, you do and you understand.
Hmm.
You do the fasting, you see the benefits yourself, and there's nothing to argue about anymore, right?
You're so right. You reminded me of one. Do you know Hilton Hatema, I'm sure. Hilton Hatema's book, Man's Higher Consciousness. Right. So in that book, he says something really cool. He says loads of cool things. But one thing I remember in that book, he says, by the way, it's breaking up a little bit, so I don't know if you can hear me. I think you can. Yeah. He says that so anyone that doesn't believe in
No, I
fasting,
was hearing.
yeah, so he says that anyone doesn't believe in long-term fasting or even intermittent fasting, all they need to do to prove themselves wrong is to just go a period of like 16, 18, 20 hours a day, which isn't really that hard, 16 hours a day. And then once you experience basically like you experience yourself the energy that you get from the period like of hour 14, 15 of non-eating, which by the way means the 8 hours of sleep too. So it's not as hard as people make out in their heads, but basically you just need the references yourself of like when you're empty, why do I have more energy? And that is an awakening in and of itself, because the whole society, the doctors tell you you need to eat 4 snacks, 5 snacks a day to keep your blood sugars levels. But if that's the case, when you do the experiments yourself and you have more energy because you're empty for a long time, that should rightly confuse you, and it could wake you up to the fact that what these doctors are saying about fasting and lower blood sugar levels is all bullshit, you know?
Yes, and I think that really hits an interesting key, because the whole medical industry is based off the idea that people have problems and they sell the solution, right? But fasting is free. So,
Ah, yeah. Yeah.
so and actually, I really like that to stress that point, because fasting is free, and like the most powerful form of fasting would be distilled clean types of water and dry fasting, which are basically essentially free.
Yeah.
um, Perhaps it will be so intense that you'll be resting at home for some of the time at first, in a way, right? Because the cleaner you get, the more energy you get, and that's also a good indicator that I have learned. The worse you feel when you start a fast, the more you have to detox, essentially. The
Yeah.
healthier you become,
Yeah.
you just feel more and more energy. It's very interesting to see that transition.
Hmm. Now that is interesting because actually, when people are new to health and they got a lot of issues, that could put people off, right? Me and you know people that blame feeling worse because they're doing something they've been told is good, like intermittent fasting, and then getting confused and thinking, well, it's bad for me because I tried a fast and I felt sick or nauseous,
Yeah,
this energy.
I think I think it's also that mentality that people have nowadays, that they just want the instant results. But you have to understand that for decades of your life and possibly for generations, right? Most of us were already born in bodies that were had certain deficiencies or weakness in certain organs and glands. So there's a lot of undoing that is necessary before we restore ourselves to health and get to experience most of the benefits. So we have to understand that there's a transition to be made, and detoxing all of our past actions is not always going to be fun, right?
Mm,
So it and I think that's one of the important reasons to find other people that share our journey also, right? Because if you if you didn't know any better, if you didn't have any references, and you attempted a healthier diet or fasting, and you saw the detox, and you would be scared and you would go back. But if you hear about people that went through it, got to the other side, and now are explaining to you why you feel this way, why does this happen, what does it mean, then now you have the references to assist you in guiding yourself through this process. And I think that's one of the main reasons for there to be value in us sharing our experiences with one another, right? We
yeah.
provide that reference.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful what you said. So in your book, a little bit about fasting, you run through things similar, I guess. And um I think from what I remember, it was less of like a guideline of how to do it and more of a philosophy and more of reasons why we should do it. Correct me if I'm wrong though, when I'm thinking back, because it was a while since I read it. It came out last year, the year before.
Sorry, I think you broke in the middle. Do you mind repeating?
Yeah, so in your book, it's been a while since I read it. I think I remember you talking less about it wasn't like an instructional, this is how you do it, you do this, A, B, C
Mhm.
logic. It was more like reasons to fast and why it should be done to encourage people. It was more of an encouraging book, more of like, because some books are different. Some people just tell you how to do it and then you just go and do it. And other books are
Yeah,
like more encouraging and philosophical.
yeah. It was more of the second type. I think there was in one chapter that I said like, hey, if someone wants a general guideline, you could do it sort of like this or use this template as a reference. But most of the book, I really, when sharing, let us say, sharing my message, I really think the core of it is self-empowerment. So we really have to remember, not even learn, but remember how to connect to that intelligence inside of us. So when someone that helpful, like it is helpful in the short term, but not so much in the long term,
Mhm.
when someone gives you a general idea, reasons to, some signs you can look at, things to avoid, and just gives you a lot of tools
Mm,
and a general
mm,
description of what to do, then you can work your own way, right? And there's a lot of power in that, because you realize, well, how powerful you are, essentially. So I did my best to write the book covering as many aspects of it as possible, but not telling people how to do, because I think it is also important to, there's value in emulating other people who have done something successfully, but I think we can only get so far copying, right? Because we're all unique, we all have different interests, personalities. So at the end of the day, we do have to find out what works best for us and how it works best for us to kind of create our own way, right? So I did my best to write the book not so much as an instruction book, but I'm not even sure what to call it, like a companion book, let us say, something that you can bring along on a journey, but that will not necessarily give you the clear steps to take, just a wealth of information that will help you in making your own decisions. I guess that would be a good way of putting this.
Yeah, you empower people with it, and it's a encouraging book on fasting without overwhelming people with information that could. So I really like it, and that's from what I remember of it, because obviously it was a while ago. It came out last year, the year before, right? Your book, your first book,
Yeah, it was almost exactly 2 years ago.
right?
So
Yeah,
I have to say that I even read my own book a few times too, but it has been a while now. So if you
right,
ask me any very specific questions, I wonder if I would remember correctly, because it's crazy, right? These recent years have been so transformative to all of us. I know you know very well, and it's crazy because sometimes I would say, like, not even every month or every week, sometimes even in the same day, you kind of realize, man, I just became a whole different person because I had that realization or I connected those dots. So I think I'm fundamentally a different person than I was when I wrote that first book, and especially because once you write a book, you're not the same person when you finish writing it
right.
anyway, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very transformative journey, and it's interesting because I can see that that book still remains true,
Hmm.
but to some extent, I'm also, if I wrote it today, it would be very different, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's funny how that works. It's almost like my books are. I mean, me and you've talked about this just in Messenger chat, not on an interview. But the joy of writing a book, because I mean, I always want to encourage people. I encourage you, and I know you're the same. We want to encourage people, especially writing books. Everyone's got one in them. But what me and you agree on, and I think most book authors will, is the actual joy isn't necessarily in. I mean, people say, oh, it's all about money. You've written your book for money. You've written it for fame, for validation. But actually, the joy comes from the actual process of being in the moment and coming up with these sentences and unique styles of writing your thoughts on pen to paper and being seen and heard, which is the most important thing as we go on this journey. It's your mastery and you're being seen and heard as you write it on the paper. It's your higher consciousness and you have to think about it because you can't rush. Like I'm so bad sometimes. You've seen on I make mistakes typing on messenger chat even, if I'm being honest. Some of my books have mistakes in them, but it does slow you
Mine
down.
too.
Yeah, right. No one's perfect, but the thought process of a book makes you almost like philosophy. You have to think about things. You think deeper when you start writing a book, and the actual process is joyful. I'll be honest. Some of the happiest days of my life are writing my books. That's why I've written so many, because I want more happy moments in my life, and I can honestly say that. Like one of my books I wrote during almost like when one of my relationships was going downhill. So it was a tough time in my head. Like, there was a lot of external things going on, but I found comfort in that same external shit was going crazy. But internally, I was enjoying those moments writing that book.
Yes.
It was really fun.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because it's basically a form of art, right? And I think one of the most important things we can do in life is find a creative means of self-expression. I have something like that written in my own journal, and I really liked the way I put this idea because it feels very true and universal. I'm not sure if you agree,
Mhm,
because like you said, I think everyone has a book in them too, but it may not necessarily be a book. It may be a painting.
mhm,
It may be building a house. I think everyone has something in them to express and create, and the book is just an example of it. So it's very interesting when we find a way of self-expression that actually resonates with us and we are able to fully immerse ourselves in it. It becomes a meditation of sorts too. We see that many of these ideas kind of end up overlapping. So once we're sort of, I don't know, connect with our purpose, aligned with our higher self, many people will call it different ways, we're experiencing that bliss of just being present in the moment, being fully integrated into what we're doing, and it just flows, right? Some people call it the flow state or something.
Mm.
And once we hit that alignment, it's just like you said, it's one of some of the happiest moments. And for us, it is happening writing books. For many others, I also believe that it could be writing books,
Yeah.
but you do not have to feel discouraged
Right.
if it is not for you, because it could be painting, it could be
Mm.
myriad of things. And I think it's important to figure out at least one thing for you, right? Because many people, they just never realize a creative way of expressing themselves. That's an important part of life too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge. And yeah, you've also, well, I mean, for being honest, it's already an achievement to write one book, right? But you've now gone and done, which is unusual. So it's unusual someone's already written a book, considering the world at large. But now you've just released, I think it was last week or the week before, and I got your book as well. Thanks for the tag on Facebook. I wouldn't have known, you see, I didn't see it on my newsfeed. So you've written now two books. Your second book's called Foundations of Health.
Exactly. And that is coming from the man who has written how many books, saying that it is weird to write to.
There we go.
Yeah.
But I've written very
And
small books. But yes, I've written a load.
yeah, well, it was going to be just one book,
Mm,
but health simplified. But now I realized that when I was dividing the chapters and writing it, um, I realized that it just made sense to me to divide in three pods. And I was just thinking, this is part one talking about this, part two talking about that, and part three about that. But when I finished part one, I was kind of like, man, this thing is a book on itself.
yeah.
So, and I kind of wanted to express it already. So I decided, you know what, let's split this and make it a book series instead. So this one book that is all interconnected, I just released the part one, so to speak, which I'm calling it book one now,
Well,
Foundation of Health.
right.
But there are more to come.
Yeah.
And I have to say that I already have like many pages of drafts. So these are coming still this year.
Oh, they're going to come out this year. More. Another one.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, I wasn't
Uh,
expecting that. I knew you were going to do more because you said on Facebook. I didn't know it was going to be so soon. That's cool.
I mean,
Cool. I think it's.
it's all
Yep.
interconnected. So I kind of already have the whole structure lined up. So, you know, I just have to continue flowing. And I think I'll be writing them without any hiccups.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll finish the other two by this year. Now about the fourth book, if there's any,
Yeah.
wait, about the fifth book, if there's ever any, I'm pretty sure that one would take a few years again. But I don't know. We'll
Right.
see.
So there's four coming out. There's two already out. There's two more coming. Four. That's cool.
Well, I would say that those are in my mind. Whether they will come out or not, but we
Yeah.
will see.
Yeah. I've read your second one and I think it's a really good book. I love your style of writing and I think it really gives a different angle. Like you said, everyone's got a unique personality and yours is
Mhm.
very, I guess if you're a normal person, very triggering. But to me, I resonate completely with it. I'm like, yes, this makes sense. And there's things in there that I actually didn't know. So I'm like, oh, like for example, well, I mean, I knew, but you give me a different angle of it. Like, you know, they say that a baby's like, you say in the book, a fruit has 75% water, right? Or more. And then a baby's skin, a baby has that level of water, a baby born. And then, of course, we age, you say in the book, our skin dries and we lose that water content. And of course, if we're unhealthy and we age like most people in a bad way, our water content is even lower than that, but it's going to be low anyway as we age. And I find it fascinating. Like a fruit's water content is almost like a human's. You know, all the things you put in there, like a very to my vibe. And I'm sure the audience would love this kind of information. triggering as hell to normal people.
Thank you. Well, I just figured the likelihood of normal people reading my books were pretty low, so I took that into consideration.
Exactly.
But what you said was a realization that really stuck with me, because I think even this realm, if we don't want to call it a planet, um, they say it's about 75% water too, if I'm not mistaken.
Do they? Didn't know that. Do you mean
Well,
the
at least
oceans are
there,
75%? The oceans compared to
yeah,
the Earth?
yeah, yeah, something like there's 75% oceans to 25% landmass. I remember something vaguely like that. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong, but I just found very interesting how that connects to the water percentage in crude and the water percentage in humans, so it's,
Whoa, like a micro macro thing. The macro universe, the micro
yeah,
body.